at Mountain Gardens, middle of July. It's about July 15th or so. This has actually been in bloom for a while. The St. John's wort, although it's still in the early stages, so we need to be harvesting this right now. Actually, we've already harvested some for tincturing. So this is quite a famous medicinal herb. In ancient times it was used more for wound healing, especially deep wounds with nerve damage and burns and so on. You can put it into oil for that, for external use. But then more recently it's become known as a calming herb, the herbal Prozac, people call it. So it has sedative properties. The active compounds are hypericum and hyperforin and a couple of others. So there are many different St. John's worts, many different Hypericum species. Some are woody, like shrubs, and some are herbs, like this one. So this is the one you're going to see most often mentioned in books as the medicinal one, Hypericum perforatum. And the perforatum relates to the fact that there are little tiny transparent dots in the leaves, which you can see if you hold it up to the light. You can see little like pores. Those are thought of as perforations. So that gives it its name, Hypericum perforatum. But there are other species that can be used medicinally, and one of the ways you determine whether or not the one you've got is medicinal is crush the flower buds, and you'll get a reddish stain. Or when you pour alcohol over them to make the tincture, you get a reddish color. And that is supposedly the hypericum, so that equates to the medicinal action of the herb. So we can look at another species here presently that's also medicinal. This one, Hypericum perforatum, is getting towards the southern end of its range here. It's a big weed in different parts of the country, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, where it grew up in clear cuts, and then it's bad for cattle. They eat it and become photosensitive, is my understanding. So it's listed as a weed that's prohibited to be grown in various parts of the world because of that problem, the problem that cattle have with it. So they even introduced an insect to try and get rid of this plant. It's a little gold-colored beetle that I guess feeds on the St. John's wort, and it also seems to spread a disease around. So you can have big plantings of this stuff, and just about when it's ready to be harvested, all of a sudden it turns black almost overnight. Just disintegrates. Rather heartbreaking if you're trying to grow a crop of it for income, which we are not doing. But in my garden it just kind of hops around, so it never stays too long in one place. But fortunately there are always new little bits of it coming up. It likes to be on the dry side, so I picked my sunnier, drier areas to grow St. John's wort. It put itself in this spot. I would not have picked this spot for it. It's kind of shady here, but it seems to be happy, and it's actually been here for several years. Its life cycle is that at the beginning of the year it just runs along the ground horizontally and makes a wide patch, and then it gets triggered to start flowering sometime around May, I guess. St. John's feast day, I think, is Midsummer's Day, but it's usually not quite in bloom by Midsummer Day in this area. So it goes horizontally for a while, and then it goes up like this. Makes its flowering stalk. And the part used, I would clip it probably about here. We use the flowering tops, we don't use the whole thing. I think that's the strongest part of it. And we'll put some of it into oil for external use, and the rest of it we'll tincture. That's standard ratio, 1 to 2, 75% alcohol, I believe is what we do. So that's Hypericum perforatum. Now we're going to walk over and look at a different species that can also be used medicinally. Alright, so we wanted to look at a different species of Hypericum. This one is Hypericum punctatum. It has bigger leaves. It doesn't have the the perforations that the other one has, but it does have little black spots when you hold it up to the light, which is, I don't know if that's a distinguishing characteristic or not. This one seems to be fairly common, and it grows more in light shade than the full sun of the Hypericum perforatum. This is all over our garden. We never planted it. It just is here and gets around. And it also passes the Hypericum test. If you squeeze the little buds, you get the red coloration, you can see. This actually has been tested. I believe Gaia Herbs tested it out and found that it actually was higher in Hypericum than the perforatum, but perforatum is still grown because you can get more mass. If you want a big harvest, like commercially, perforatum still makes more sense to grow, but on an individual, for us, you know, in this garden, this is a great plant to have. It doesn't have the same problems of suddenly dying off that perforatum seems to have. I don't know if the little bug, little gold beetle that attacks the perforatum doesn't seem to like this or whatever. Anyway, this is a good one to know about. Might be in your garden as well. Hypericum punctatum. Used the same way as perforatum. This just to show you a different species of St. John's wort. So this is strictly an ornamental one. This is actually a shrub. You can see it's probably about 25 years old. I don't at this point remember the name of it. I got it from some old garden. And this you can, you know, do the same test, and there's no purple coloration at all. I don't think any of these woody St. John's worts, and there's a number of them that are used in landscape trade. They make nice, attractive ground covers. Some of them have much bigger flowers than this, but no good for medicinal purposes. The only ones that I know of to use medicinally are the perforatum and the one I just showed you, the punctatum. I don't think any of the others are medicinal, but as I say, you can test them by squeezing the flower buds and see if you get that color. So this is the tincture of St. John's wort that we're making at the moment, and it is higher alcohol, like as high as you can get, 95% alcohol. Use the leaves and the flowers, not the stalks. And you can see the bright purple color. It, immediately the alcohol turns this beautiful red purple shade. So it's not all in bloom at once. So we start with alcohol, and we'll just keep adding more herb and more alcohol until we're filled right up to the brim. That's the way we do it. And then we probably do some into oil as well.